Welcome to Motorsport Coaching, the podcast for racers with racers. Miss Motivate can help get you to the next level. Every episode, she talks to the best racers of today and those that can get you there. She'll help you get better
Racing News
at fitness, nutrition, sports psychology, sponsorship, social media, public relations, and media training. Connect with Miss Motivate at motivatetraining.com.au. That's MOTIV8, training.com.au. And now, to help get you to the next level, Miss Motivate herself, Belinda Risley.
Welcome to the next episode of Motorsport Coaching. Today we're talking to Jason and Austin Riley from Racing with Autism. Austin is a young motorsport competitor from Uxbridge, Canada. He has been racing for 11 years, starting at the age of 8. Over that time, Austin has been very successful in racing in the highest level of karting and now in the Micro Cup. With all his successes, Austin suffers from autism. Autism is known to be a disability, but Austin is living proof that it does not have to be. He has been able to compete with the best of the best and win. This is one of my favorite episodes. I hope you enjoy it too. So thank you very much for joining me today, Jason and Austin. How did you guys get involved into motorsport?
You want to answer that one? Austin was 7.5 years old. We were struggling to find something that he enjoyed doing. He had been diagnosed very recently with moderate to severe ADHD, with moderate to severe fine motor skill impairment. He hadn't been diagnosed with autism at that time. And the doctor suggested we put him in some sort of sports activity to help him with his coordination. We signed him up for several sports, soccer, being in Canada, hockey, and both experiences ended up us leaving the various facilities rather embarrassed, and Austin pretty bored with his life and didn't like it. Mm-hmm. Then one day we got a flyer in the mail. It was in the spring of 2007. It was about a go-kart program at a track near our house, like an arrive and drive program. So I took the flyer off the table and I went up to Austin's room where it was and I put it in front of him and said, "Hey buddy, what do you think about this?" And he looked at the flyer and looked at me. He goes, "Why would I want to do that? I suck at everything. If I go there, people will just make fun of me. I'll get upset and we'll have to come home. So why don't we just skip the whole process and I'll stay in my room?" Well, unfortunately for Austin, I'm just about as stubborn as he is. So every day I came home from work, I picked up the same flyer, I went up to it, and I said, "Come on, buddy, give it a try." And every day I met the same response: "No, I'm not doing it. I told you I'm not doing it. No, no, no." But this went on for like 4 weeks. And 4 weeks, I came home on a Friday afternoon. I grabbed the flyer, and I went to go upstairs. And Austin's waiting for me at the top of the landing. He's like, "Stop right there. Don't say another word. I know what you're going to say. So let's make a deal. I'm going to go. I'm going to do, how many laps did you say you were going to do?"
One lap.
One lap. I was just going to do one lap at the track. And then he was coming off, and we were coming home, and we were never going back. And what was the other part of the deal?
Stop for ice cream.
He was going to stop for ice cream. So Austin was true to his words. 2 weeks later, we went to the track, and he hopped into a go-kart for the first time. And after the first lap, he didn't come off. In fact, when they waved the checkered flag for his group to come off, he wouldn't come off. He kept driving around, and the marshals are trying to stop him, and he's swerving around them. And it was like 100 other parents on the fence all watching their kids, and all I can hear is comments like, "What's wrong with that kid? Why doesn't he listen?" And I had to do like the walk of shame onto the track and let everybody know he was my kid and try and make him stop. And I remember how angry I was because I was at the end of my rope. We tried pretty much everything for him to find something he enjoyed doing, and this looked like it was going to end in failure as well. And I was waiting for him to stop in front of me, and I'm thinking, excuse me, I'm thinking, I'm going to make him feel how I feel right now. I'm going to embarrass him in front of all these other people. I'm going to yell at him like he's never been yelled at before. And he stopped about 5 feet from me, and I'm about to rip him a new one, and all I could see was the biggest smile inside of his helmet, and I knew from that moment that we found something. And that day he even went on to race in that afternoon's race. And you remember where you finished?
Dead last.
Well, not dead last, second last. He must have spun out every lap. And when we got home, he didn't want to go to Dairy Queen or for an ice cream. All he wanted to do was go back to the track. So the next week we went back, and he didn't finish second last. In fact, he finished third.
Fantastic.
And then the next week he finished third again, and then second, and second. Then he won a race. And he went the rest of that year, and he finished. He never missed the podium again. He finished what place? Third overall out of over 200 kids, and he was by far the youngest. And ever since then, it's been get me something bigger, faster, onwards and upwards. It's been insane. When I look back at, it was just something as a hobby, and now it's basically defined our whole lives, and still does to this day. And it's defining lives for kids all over the world, because I don't know if Austin knows the impact he's making on the world, but there are kids everywhere that look at Austin as a role model, and he gives them hope that they can one day follow their dreams just like he has. And when you're a dad, that's pretty much all you can ask for. Like, that's the best thing in the world, to see your son doing all these great things, and you're basically along for the ride.
It's fantastic, guys. And how long ago, how long have you been racing for? How long ago did the journey start?
10 years.
It's 11 years now.
Well, second.
Yeah, altogether it's been 11 years since 2007.
Yeah.
So this second year in the car.
Fantastic. And what kind of categories have you raced over those times?
In karts, he started in, like, the first year was a Rive and Drive. Then he got his own go-kart, which was like Honda Novice, and then Micromax, which was like a Rotax class, which he won his first championship in. And then he moved up to Minimax like a year early. And his third year Minimax, he won 2 championships. He finished second in overall in all of Canada. And that was only by a few points, and that was because dear old dad forgot to tighten one bolt that caused him to DNF on a race. So it was basically my fault, but he didn't win the championship for Canada that year. And his last year in karts, he was racing what they call shifter karts here, so like 6 gears, sequential blocks, front rear brakes, about 60 horsepower, with him in it, like 380 pounds. So they do well over 170 kilometers an hour. Pretty kick-ass machine. The thing that's amazing about watching Austin drive one of those is he can't tie his shoes, has trouble writing his name, but yet can drive something with a hand clutch and a sequential box and look like he's sitting at the beach, just relaxing. And it was, every time I've moved up Austin to the next class, I would always wonder, has he reached his limitations now? There's no way he can do the next class. It's too competitive. He won't be able to compete and be successful. And every time we sped Austin up and put him in something harder, he's made it look easier. And that doesn't make sense. And it was only a couple of years ago that Austin was able to verbalize that to me, that the go-kart's finally going as fast as his mind works. So the faster he goes, the more comfortable he is, the more calm he is, the more focused he is, the less anxiety he has. And that's why he can drive something like that and be totally relaxed. It's an odd thing to get your head around. And, if you would ask me at 8 years old, will Austin one day be driving a shifter cart doing 100 miles an hour down the back straight at his favorite track? And you're crazy. There's no way that's going to happen. No, he does it like it's putting on a pair of pants.
Mm. And how have you gone over the years, Jason, with the communication between yourself and Austin, getting car feedback?
Well, that's probably the most difficult journey that we've had is getting feedback from Austin. The thing that makes Austin pretty remarkable is he just adapts to whatever the cart is set up for, and still brings it back with the same time. Like there's very minor tweaks that you can do to make it faster, but Austin just kind of adapts to things. But if there's something wrong with the cart, something that's out of not quite in alignment, or something's just slightly loose, or the motor's not running right, like just in even like a different noise, he picks up on that stuff incredibly quick. Like if a set screws loose in the bearing and an axle has a little bit of shift to it, he picks that up. So as a mechanical feedback, for mechanical feedback, he's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the car's not turning in properly, or I got too much oversteer, you have to ask very selected questions, and you have to ask them in various different ways to get the right answer. You can't just take whatever. Because Austin, how's this turn for you? Oh, it's good. Really? The car looks like it's got a bit of understeer. Yeah, it's not turning the way I want. So it's not good then. Well, it's still good. I'm driving the cart. Yeah, I understand. If the cart was on fire and Austin came into the pits, he'd still say it was good.
Yeah.
Because he's doing the thing he loves. But you have to ask very specific questions, and you can't just take the first answer. You have to probe a little harder or a little deeper. One thing that we found has worked really well for him is GoPro footage. Like we put GoPros on, especially in practice when we're setting the cart up, one on the front end, one behind him, so we can see what his hands are doing, and then we watch that footage, and we can make better understanding of what he's doing with his hands and where the cart's going, and then talk about where we see him overcorrecting or he looks a little understeery or oversteery. Then we can actually stop the corner. Okay, what's the cart doing at this point? And then he can tell us. So it's been a long road, but it's something that we've kind of worked on together. Don't get me wrong, it's not fluffy clouds and butterflies either all the time. But we have found a way to communicate, and we've been able to carry that on to his cars as well. The car he rides have pretty good onboard telemetry, so we can see throttle position, brake position, steering input, and we found that extremely helpful.
Oh, fantastic, guys. Well, during the week, I put on a Facebook page, was there any questions? And I just had some that's come through. So one of our clients have asked, they'd love to know, how do you deal with times when the rules and the penalties are a little hazy and Austin struggles to understand or think it is unfair or unjust? How do they get him to understand or move on?
Well, that's good, Austin. When something bad happened in, say, your Micromax days, how would your weekend go? So if we were first practice of the day and the cart wouldn't start, we'd may as well pack up and go home, because that would be the end of the weekend for us. His behavior becomes so bad and so frustrated, he would dwell on something, not just like the Friday practice, but Saturday and Sunday, and he would never be able to focus on his actual job. But now he can get taken out in the biggest race of his life in turn number 1. And how long does it take you to get over something now?
Pretty good.
How long does it take you?
Not long.
5 minutes?
And has he ever been in the penalty room, been in having to sign something that he didn't quite understand or was against?
Whenever we go to a driver's meeting, we always make sure either myself or Shane or Curtis, his karting mechanic, always goes with him, because we talk Austin, and whoever's giving that meeting may not talk Austin. So we just go over the major points or something's different that he's not used to at a track, and just make sure he understands. Austin, in his karting days, has never been like black flag for unfairness, In fact, as a father, there's a lot of times where he should have shut the door on somebody, and he hasn't. There's been times where he's let people by off the start. He's qualified pole position and let the second place guy go out and head, and stayed on his bumper the whole race and let him win, just to let him win, because that's a nice thing to do. I don't have to win all the time.
Oh, that's fantastic. And
there's been times like at a national event where Austin's made a pass on somebody. It hasn't been quite clean, where he's like put a mark on the other guy's card or kind of shoved him a bit wide. Out of that turn, Austin will let that guy back through, and then get him next lap. Whereas a dad, like, what are you doing? Come on, man, go. So that way, it's he's like the cleanest, most fair driver. He never wants to put another driver in a position where he wouldn't want to be in. And he's always said to me, Dad, I don't want to ruin somebody else's race just because mine has been ruined. So he's never, if somebody's done something bad to him, he's never gone after that guy and then shunted him into the trees, that kind of thing. He may get a little upset afterwards when he was younger, but it's it's racing now. He's just come to learn to cope with it. And if there's anything that the sport of karting or racing has given Austin, is basically he's given him coping skills that he never would have had, because he loves the sport so much, but there's so much uncertainty with it. Is the kart going to start on the grid? Am I going to get taken out in turn one? Will I win the race? He doesn't know what's going to happen at the drop of the green flag. And, for people with autism, especially Austin, he likes to know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. To put him in like a chaotic world of like junior Rotax with like 40 carts on the grid ready to go, and it's chaos. It's like mayhem for somebody with autism. It's like, that's like the worst scenario you can put him in. But that's taught him all these coping skills that he's been able to take other parts in life that, things that were a big deal that didn't go right at school are now, things are over with fairly shortly compared to 2-3 days we'd have to deal with something.
So do you have to talk to Austin before the race and before the event about what's about to happen? Or how does he, I guess, get into the right headspace to compete?
Not really. Usually the more you fill Austin's head with things, remember to do this, or, remember to block that guy, the more you're giving him things to think about rather than him just letting it naturally happen. And people with autism, especially in an environment like a busy paddock, giving Austin 5 things to remember, they all become jumbled by the time he gets to the grid, and he's not going to remember anyway. Basically what we try and do, is if there's something really important, that's the point we go with, and we emphasize that point, and everything else, we just have to live with and let it happen. And, there used to be a bigger deal when he was smaller and not so sure of himself and confident. And now basically, get your helmet, let's go, that kind of thing. He knows what he needs to do. He knows how he has to drive to be competitive. And that's pretty much it.
Austin, what do you think about when you're out on the track? Are you just thinking of the car in front, the next corner, winning the race?
Well, speak.
I'm not really thinking about anything when I'm driving.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I'm just focused on getting to the front.
Uh-huh.
If I'm not there already.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. And
one of the things Austin said to me a few years ago, and will you stop moving your leg? I'm resting the bloody computer on. Because I asked him how he felt, like, because racing's more than just racing to Austin. It's more of a therapy. That's how he gets rid of his anxiety that's all building up. That's how he relaxes. It's how he copes with life. And I was very curious to ask that same question. What are you thinking about when you're driving? How does it make you feel when you're racing? Well, what was your response, Drew?
Free.
What?
Free.
He said it made him feel free.
Yeah.
All the noise that he has to listen to is all dissipated. All he has is the helmet and the sound of the noise and sound of the engine noise, and everything else is drowned out. He's by himself. And that's basically Austin's happy place. That's where he's the most confident, where he's the most comfortable. And, I've been watching Austin race for 11 years now. I still marvel at the transformation that takes place by when he's like standing on the grid beside his cart and he's really fidgety and nervous and looks totally out of place. But as soon as he sits in the cart, it's like a light switch changes, and all the thing I'm really nervous and that bothers me in life, they all disappear, and it's like a total calming effect. It's a good thing to watch.
Oh, that's really nice, guys. Sorry, what's it? Excuse me. And so at the moment, how often are you racing? Is this something that you guys try and do every weekend for the benefits of that it provides Austin, or?
Well, the last year we ran a cart and a car. The cart we funded. The car was funded by Method and Marie, who sponsored Austin for the whole year last year. They have an autistic son, and they saw Austin's story, and they thought, this is a great thing to get out there. Method raced in the Nissan Micro Cup as well, and he offered Austin a test in his car, and he was impressed with how he handled it. And we were actually on tour in the United Kingdom, and we got a Facebook call from them, and basically saying that they have raised enough money to give Austin a full ride in the Micro Cup. And we weren't quite sure how things were going to progress in the Micro Cup. I 100% believe Austin has the talent to drive any car in this world if you give him enough time to get comfortable in it.
Mm-hmm.
And get comfortable in his abilities and how things work. And the Micro Cup, the Micro car itself, the Micro Cup cars, it's very unique. It's a hard car to drive. There's lots of professionals that take a flyer weekend in the Micro Cup and they don't place in the top 10. And when you got 25 cars in the field, a lot of them have been in like 3 or 4 years in the series. It's not an easy competition. Everybody's got the same stuff. You're not going to pass anybody on the straightaway like they're stopped. It all comes down to the driver. And it wasn't until the end of the season, because we didn't have any money to like rent tracks for practice days and stuff, Austin had to learn on the job. And it wasn't until the last couple of races of the season he started to show his potential. And we took the chance and we sold all Austin's karting stuff last year. We sold our race trailer, everything we had, to buy Austin's race car that he drove. And this year we've been trying to fund it ourselves. So we've had 4 races this year. Austin's goal the whole last year was to finish top 10, first time out, which he didn't accomplish last year. His best finish was 13th at the final race. His first race out of the box this year, he finished 10th. Second race, he finished 9th. And then the third and fourth races, he finished 6th and 5th. So he's really coming on. We've been, funding a kart season and funding a car season are 2 different things. The Micro Cup is still very inexpensive compared to other series, but we were not quite as prepared as we should have been. Some of the costs were a little eye-opening to us, and we've been scrambling trying to find some secondary sponsorship. As you know, we've been selling puzzle pieces on Austin's car. Those have helped us get through this next coming race, and the new sponsor that we brought on board, Bikers for Autism. It looks like we just about have enough to finish the year. So as long as everything goes okay, we should be able to compete in all 6 races this year. Is that enough for Austin? No. Austin really should be in something somewhere every weekend of his life. It helps him improve. It helps him stay focused. It helps him with his anxiety level. It helps him with maturity. But it's just not possible at this time. I wish Austin would race karts in between the gaps in the car schedule. Not to win another championship, but just to get him out there and enjoy having fun, no pressure, that kind of stuff. So hopefully over the winter we can get him another kart, and that's what we can do for next year.
And do you find that Austin's behaviour changes, obviously the off racing events? So how is he like during the weeks when he's not racing and not competing?
So the Micro Cup schedule is fairly irregular. Our first race was the second week in May, third week in May. So we did a test day the second week in May. We did the first 2 races the third week in May. And then we have race 3 and 4 2 weeks after that. So the beginning of June, and we haven't raced since. So it's almost 8 weeks we've been off. And slowly but surely from, beginning of June to now, Austin's not been in a happy place. His anxiety continues to build until he gets that release. And it's been hard for him to deal with. And when it's hard for him to deal with, it's hard for everybody else to deal with as well. He doesn't mean to be the way he is. It's just he's going through a tough time, and it's hard. And it's not that we have the financial wherewithal just to get him another car or put him in another series or buy another $15,000 go-kart to put him in a race shifter in between. It's just not possible. So, Austin made this choice that he wanted to race the car and he wanted to move on and from karting and get rid of all his car stuff to help fund it. And, that's what we had to do. But this is one of the drawbacks. And we saw it a lot over the winter too, because we sold all his karting stuff at the end of the year last year. So we didn't have any karting stuff. And normally what we do over the winter is we take a couple long weekends. We drive down to Florida and have a few lapping days just to get, the edge off and have some fun. And if we had some extra money, then we'd do a couple of races in Florida while we were there. It was good fun. But because we don't have that outlet anymore, the winter time was really, really hard for Austin.
And Austin, what's your ultimate goal in motorsport? Where would you love to see yourself?
Formula One.
Really?
Well, let's kind of be realistic. What would you like to race moving forward?
Porsche GT3 Cup.
Oh, fantastic. And have you had any opportunities to have a drive day yet, or any laps or anything?
Not yet. He hasn't had the opportunity yet, but we've had a few conversations, and I think as Austin's progressing in the Micro Cup this year, it's really starting to open eyes. Like last year, it was a lot of publicity, but when he's coming in 15th and 16th and 17th, they're kind of thinking, it's a great story, but he's okay. I know in the bottom of my heart that Austin can do a hell of a lot better than that. So now that he's finishing 5th and 6th and getting closer to the front end of the pack than the back end of the pack, it's been eye-opening. But the sad thing with motorsports on this side of the fence, if you can't stroke a check, you have to have some really good friends that can stroke a check for you. And we're not at that level yet to take that leap.
Unfortunately, it's the same everywhere in the world. But you do have a brand new sponsor with Bikers for Autism. So they've come on to help you for the rest of the year. And what do they do? What kind of support do they offer you? Or tell us a little bit more about their organisation.
Bikers for Autism is a unique, soon-to-be charity. Basically, it's a bunch of tattooed, bearded biker dudes that they look badass, but they do good things.
Fantastic.
The founder of it, the founder of it, his I think nephew or niece has autism and wanted to do something. Wanted to do something that would help. So they started raising money and they started going on long tours and on their bikes, and they got some wicked jackets like Bikers for Autism on the back, and they're doing some amazing things. They're based out of the west coast of Canada and British Columbia, but they have like branches all over the U.S. I think they may have like a few guys in Australia as well. Don't quote me on that, but I think I saw on their website. Our partnership is at its infancy right now. I haven't even spoken to the founder yet. We've been emailing back and forth, and when I put that plea out on our Facebook page several weeks ago, saying that we're going to need some more money to keep Austin racing, I got a message from him, and he's like, "How much do you need?" I'm like, "Well, I can take anything you give me, right? Like, how many zeros? It doesn't matter."
That's right.
And he said, "Well, let me see what I can do. Let me talk to the board of directors." And we're so thankful that they've come on board, and we're looking once the racing season's finished to do some things with them, take the car out there. The Autism Reality Experience, we could do some fundraisers with them. The synergy, like the thing they're trying to help kids with, is all right down our alley, and vice versa. And we've kind of been watching each other from afar, both going in the same direction, but on different roads. But I'm very thankful that they stepped up, and they're hoping that this isn't like a one-time thing, that they're going to be a bigger part of Austin's life and his racing for years to come. And let's hope that's the case. And we're hoping that we become a bigger part of them and do good things and look badass
together. So last year you guys embraced on the Autism Awareness Tour. What was that all about, and how did that come about, and what did that really mean for you in Austin?
Well, to explain that, we have to kind of go back to 2014. 2014 was a very special year. It kind of started everything. We had launched Racing with Autism the year before, not knowing quite what we were going to do with it other than post Austin's race updates on it. I didn't have any idea where it was going. I didn't have any idea the type of growth I would see. I didn't have any idea that I'd be contacted by parents all over the world wanting to talk about autism and how amazing Austin was, and should they put their kids in karting and all that kind of stuff. That I had no idea where anything was going. And I was sitting in in the room we're sitting in right now with Curtis, Austin's karting mechanic, in the spring of 2014, trying to decide how much money we had for Austin to race that year and where we were going to race. And Austin burst into the room, as he still does today, and interrupts the conversation and said, "I want to race somewhere different." Now, for somebody with autism who doesn't like to travel, doesn't like to do new things, this is a pretty big step for Austin. So I really wanted to make what was going to come out of his mouth happen. So I said, "Austin, where do you want to race this different?" And he dropped the bomb on me that he wanted to race in the Western Canadian Karting Championships. Well, I don't know if you know your Canadian geography, but we live in Eastern Canada, and Canada is a pretty big place. So the Western Canadian Karting Championships that year were in Regina, Saskatchewan, which was 28 hours and 36 minutes from our house. And I said, "Austin, there's no way we can do this. It's going to be too expensive. It's going to cost too much money, too much time. We can't do this." And to my surprise, he was prepared for the conversation. And he said, Dad, what if I skip a couple of the big races I normally do in Ontario and Quebec, and we do this one race instead? So that's a fair compromise. So at the end of June 2014, we drove out to Regina, Saskatchewan, and Austin at that point still struggled mightily with anxiety going anywhere new. It was always a battle. His behavior had become very poor, really hard to handle, not fun for me or for anybody else that was involved. So whenever we'd go to a new track or someplace Austin hadn't been before, we'd always have to go a couple days early just to let his anxiety calm down. And we drove out to Regina, and we got there a couple days early, and we unpacked, and people started arriving. Nobody knew who we were or where we were from. But at the end of the final practice session, right before qualifying, Austin's like half a second faster than everybody else in the field. And every time Austin drives by the fence, they're like, "Who is that? Who is that?" And word started to spread around the paddock that he was the autistic kid from Ontario. Now, Austin went on to have like one of the best performances we ever had at a national event, and finished on the podium after driving all the way from the back of the field because he got taken out on the start, like even before he got to the green flag in the pre-final, and had to start dead last, which I think was 28th spot. And in 22 laps, he went from 28th spot to finish third.
Oh, fantastic.
And like reset fast lap like 20 separate times in 22 laps while passing traffic. He was flying. And when he got on the podium to get his trophy, he got the loudest cheer, even though that nobody knew who he was, a few days earlier. But the proudest moment for me was when we went back to our trailer. Half of the paddock was there wanting to congratulate Austin personally and wanted to talk more about his story. And, we packed up, and it was a great time. We had a great week, and, we're driving home. Austin hops in the back, puts his headphones on, wake me up when it's dinner time. And Curtis said to me, I said to Curtis, pretty amazing what happened here today. We created all this awareness for autism we didn't mean to. And Curtis went off the deep end. He's like, yeah, we should do more of this. We should travel all over the U.S. and Canada and just go from race to race to race, and Austin kick ass everywhere he goes, and we can raise awareness for autism. And I'm like, dude, cool your jets. Who's going to pay for all this? It's a great idea, but it's not financially possible. And the other thing is, what are we going to do between the races? Even if we could raise enough money to do this, what are we going to do? We can't just sit in the middle of, the United States for 2 weeks waiting for the next big race. I have a job, mortgage, family. We need something to do in between. And the truck fell silent for a while, and I said to Curtis, what if we created a school presentation based on Austin's life story? And we went to a race, and when we left that race on our way to the next one, we just visited schools all along the way. And that way it would give us something to do in between the time. And by the time we got home on that 28-hour, 36-minute, we had the whole idea figured out. We started raising, and March 21st, 2015, with Jess from Tasmania in tow, because she had just arrived as this idea had come to fruition. So she helped us with all the fundraising. She helped us design the presentation that we still give today. And, we actually left our house March 21st, 2015, and we were on the road for 87 days straight. We went coast to coast in the U.S. and Canada. We did, I think, 27 school presentations during that period to like 25,000 students. Austin raced 12 times at 12 tracks he'd never been to before. In the elite level class, so like racing in the adult level class at 15 years old. How'd you do?
Good.
How many times did you podium out of the 12 times? 11.
Oh, fantastic.
So the first 4 weeks of that tour were terrible. They were the worst times of my life. And I'm pretty sure the worst for Austin as well. Every place we were going, he'd never been. Every road we turned down. Every person we met, every track we went to. A lot of uncertainty, what time we were going to get to places, what would it look like, where would we eat? All these questions caused Austin an extremely hard time His anxiety was pretty much maxed out. His behavior was, because of that, was really poor. Many times I had to pull the truck over, let everybody else get out, Jess and Curtis, and just to get away from Austin for a few minutes and let everything calm down. I'd look at Austin. I said, "Dude, we can't keep going like this. It's a great idea, but let's just pack up and go home." And every time I said this to Austin, he said, "No, I want to keep going." And after the 4 week mark, it's like a light switch turned on inside of him. Austin had never loved to travel. He never loved to go new places, meet new people. And from that 4 week moment on, everything was like he was up for anything and everything. He'd eaten chicken nuggets and Caesar salad his whole life for lunch. Stopped at a restaurant in San Antonio, Texas, 4 weeks earlier. Never spoken to a waiter in his life. And waiter comes to the table. He says, "I'm going to have a steak today." I almost fell off my chair. And Austin's behavior, his love for life, changed at that moment. He wanted to do new adventures, try new things, try new foods, go new places, go exploring, meet new people. All those things that were causing him issues before all of a sudden disappeared. And it wasn't until the last week of the tour where all that behavior came back. It became really hard to deal with. All the anxiety was back, all the bad behavior. I couldn't understand why. I pulled him out of a practice session on track, and I stuck him on the back of my truck, quite physically, if truth be told. We were very tired. We hadn't slept to get to the track on time, and he was behaving not very well. And I said, "Dude, you're not getting back in your go-kart until you tell me what's going on in your head, because I don't understand why all these bad behaviors that we thought we got over are back." And he looked at me like he was just answering, "What's the weather like today?" He said, "Dad, it's because the tour is ending. This is what I was meant to do." And he left me standing in a puddle of my own tears, and then went back, hopped in his go-kart like nothing had ever happened, and just drove off. The moment we got home, we started planning for the next tour, like trying to raise money, but we had no idea where we were going to go, what we were going to do. And Jess, unfortunately, her time was running out and had to go home. And it was almost natural. Jess, when she left Austin, was like, it's like somebody chopped off her arm. It was a big part of her, and it was also the same to Austin. It was a huge part of him that left. So it was almost a natural thing that the next tour would be Australia. And Austin, 16 years old at that point in his life, and from the moment he was born to 16, at that point, he had never been separated from me for more than a day and a half, really. Always, like as we are now, like side by side, glued together. And it was an extremely emotional moment for me and proud moment for me when he was able to get on a plane with Shane and go to Australia for 8 weeks without me.
Wow.
And when he came back from those 8 weeks with Jess, like Jess brought him back and stayed a couple more weeks here. When Austin came home that trip, it was like a new person again. Like he'd grown so much more mature, and
Okay.
it was like a different kid altogether. And while he was in Australia, I got a Facebook message from a guy named Anthony Peets, who runs an autism charity in Bermuda, of all places. And he messaged me. He goes, "I love what you're doing with your son. It's really amazing. I love what you're doing in the schools. It's a good thing to see." He goes, "I have a son similar age to Austin, and I took him go-karting for the first time, and I'd never seen him light up and smile and be so happy. It's really amazing what you're doing." He goes, "My charity would like you to come to our island and speak to the schools here."
Wow.
Mr. Peets, thank you very much. I appreciate your offer, but we had just been fundraising for like 10 months we had spent every dollar that we had in this world to get Austin to Australia. There's no way we can come to Bermuda. He says, I think you misunderstand. We'll pay for your flights. We'll pay for your hotel. We'll pay for your food. We'll even pay you to speak. And my response to him was, when do you need us?
Yeah.
So Austin came off the plane. He was home for like 7 days and hopped back on another plane. We went to Bermuda, and in 5 days we did 10 presentations, 2 TV shows, 2 radio shows, a newspaper interview. Austin got to race in the karting championships on the island and kick some butt there. Win a couple trophies. Is pretty amazing. And then we started fundraising again. The tour didn't stop. Last year, we were in the United Kingdom for 3 weeks, and I think in 21 days we did 18 presentations. Drove like 12,000 kilometers in 3 weeks. I'm from England. For me to take Austin back where I was born and grew up was something I'll remember for the rest of my life. And the way our presentation was received there was quite remarkable. Something I've never shared with anyone in a public forum. I was at the point where I was emotionally drained, financially drained. I work a full-time job as well as all the racing and autism stuff. With Jess not being around and helping, it just proved I was tired. I just couldn't do it anymore. And I had a conversation with Austin, after the UK tour, because it took so long to plan. Like, to plan every minute of a 3 or 4 week journey anywhere in the world, and booking presentations, and calculating drive time, and it's a logistical nightmare, and it takes months and months and months to plan. I just couldn't do it anymore, and I said to Austin, once we finish this tour, dude, this is it for Racing with Autism. I'm just gonna, thanks for all the support over the years. Thank you, good night. And the way things went in the UK, was one particular presentation where it was just the vibe in the room. It was a very big school in the south of England in Coventry called Southern College, and I'm presenting to, like, it's a very very big school, about maybe like 800 kids, 900 kids, all like early teens, all think they know everything kind of thing. I'm looking around at the presentation. We're just about finished, and there's 14-year-old boys crying, there's girls crying, like all emotional. We finish. Austin does a speech at the end, and he gets a standing ovation. And I look at Shane, and I'm like, we're doing the wrong fucking thing full time. This should be our gig. And that tour really put a little extra bounce on my bungee. When we came back from that, I'm like, we can't stop. Things are going, starting to grow. Like, we can't stop. And we came back from England, and Bermuda was calling again, and we went back to Bermuda for a second journey, and that was even bigger and better than the first one. And when Austin's in Bermuda now, he's like a rock star. Like, walking down the street, and people stop their cars to get their pictures taken with him. It's pretty awesome.
Not as nice as Australia, though.
Not as nice. That's right.
Pretty damn close. Although I haven't been to Australia yet. So
yeah.
This past April, we just finished our latest tour, which was based on the time and distance was our greatest challenge. With 4 weeks, a little less than 4, actually a day less than 4 weeks. We started 2 days less than 4 weeks. We started April 3rd in Victoria, BC, which is the most western tip of Canada. And we finished April 27th in Charlottetown, PEI, which is the most eastern tip of Canada. And it was a little over 19,000 kilometers in those little less than 4 weeks. And in those days, those weeks, we did 28 presentations.
Wow.
So it was a lot of get up really early in the morning, drive 10 hours, go to bed late at night, present first thing in the morning, and then do it all over again.
It's tough.
I don't know if you've been watching the Canadian tour videos. I posted part 4 last night. Part 4, that stretch was the hardest. And you can really see it on our faces that nobody's a happy camper. This is killing us.
It sucked.
It sucked. Yeah, it was hard. But, now that we've been home for more than a few weeks, so kind of eager to get back on the road again. But
Where's the next?
we haven't.
Australia.
Yay.
We don't know yet. We don't know yet. We haven't had that discussion, or even if there'll be a next one, to be honest. The logistics of it are hard. The amount of funds it takes are tremendous. We'll have to see. We have to have that conversation and sit down with Shane and family and see where things go. I'm not sure if there's going to be another one.
Australia is where I want to go.
Austin is quite eager. And to be honest, I would love to make Australia our next destination. Last year, when Austin went to Australia several years ago, it was him and Jess doing the presentations. I would like to go and give my version and see how things react there. And Austin's quite eager because Jess is almost 9 months pregnant now, so he wants to see what the young one's going to look like and be an uncle, I guess.
Yeah.
So anything's possible. Anywhere's possible.
Last year was more of like a vacation.
Yeah.
He went back earlier this year with his friend from school, Brooke. So he didn't have any adult supervision. It was him and Brooke flying to Australia for how long were you there?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So it was more of just a sightseeing thing with Jess that he hadn't. They were so busy presentation wise the first time around that he didn't really get to see anything. It was all like, drive, present, go home, sleep, got up next morning, drive, present. It was.
And Brooke had never seen Australia before.
And his friend Brooke had never been to Australia as well, so it was good for him. It was good for me to see him be able to take that next step with, maybe it's not so hard to travel the world by yourself. He's getting a little closer, but I hope one day soon he'll be able to travel to Australia like it's going across the street almost.
Of course, we'd love to have you back here, Austin. So we'll try and work on that for next year, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
How do you go now, Austin, flying? Do you love planes now?
I love flying. The takeoff's the best.
Yeah.
Pretty much any mode of transportation, if it moves with some sort of motor device, whether it's a boat, whether it's a plane.
A plane doesn't have a motor, it has an engine.
Yes.
That's not a motor.
A train, anything that moves is good.
Excuse me. And so further on to your tour now, Austin, you've got a new video channel, is it? The New Experiences with Austin. Tell us a little bit about that.
Experiencing with Austin.
So this is an idea that Austin came up with.
Or Shane.
With a little help with Shane. Austin's story's grown so much over the years, and as I said earlier, he's for some reason or another has become a role model of other kids with autism. They're currently watching him on his Facebook page or YouTube videos, or they know everything about him. They use him as their gauge in life and whether they can do things as well. And Shane and Austin thought, this would be a great idea to take advantage of this and maybe help those families a little more. by having Austin put himself in circumstances that he is not 100% comfortable with. Whether it's something exciting like the indoor skydiving or the CN Tower Edge Walk that we just filmed, or last week we filmed another episode, which Austin's biggest fear in life are paramedics.
Why?
Ambulances, paramedics scare the living bejesus out of him.
They did.
The flashing lights, the unknown of what goes on in the back, all that kind of stuff. So we're very thankful that the Toronto paramedic, what's the name of just Toronto Paramedics, was it?
Toronto EMS Services.
Yeah, Toronto EMS Services gave us an opportunity to go to one of their main branches. We spent pretty much the day there, getting Austin comfortable in the surroundings, showing him all the bits of the ambulance. They got him dressed up like a paramedic. We got to ride in the ambulance in the back with a paramedic, and they gave him a rundown of what would normally happen. If Austin struggles with it, there's going to be other kids with autism that are going to struggle with it as well. So if they can see Austin face his fears, then it may help that family or that kid be able to be brave enough to do it as well. And it's not just, all these amazing activities. It can be something as mundane as getting a haircut, which for a lot of autistic kids is traumatic. Going to the dentist, I know, is not one that Austin's going to be overly impressed with.
I'm fine with the dentist. I'm not scared.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to point before we go.
Do we?
Yeah. No.
Nobody likes the dentist, Austin.
But
it's all right as long as you don't have a cavity.
That's right.
These are all things that we're going to work our way through episode by episode, and I'm hoping that we start getting suggestions from other parents saying that my kid is really scared about this or that. Could you possibly film an episode? Yeah, we'd love to do something like that, because I guess we've been so blessed with how Austin's changed over the years, and his growth gives other families hope, and we want to help as much as we can, whether it's chatting, messaging back and forth about suggestions and what we should do. Not that we're, people look at me and think, oh, Jay, you're an expert on autism. No, I am not an expert on autism. I'm an expert on Austin.
You are an expert on autism.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
And is that a YouTube channel, or is it just going to be on Facebook Live or IG?
Right now, I think our YouTube channel, it's because we have
our filmmakers working on the next episode.
Yeah, because we've kind of interwoven everything by mistake. So the Autism Reality Experience has that's the name of the YouTube channel. It's really hard to explain because our website for the Racing with Autism and the Autism Reality Experience have been set up by the same guy, and Google kind of wraps itself around all the email addresses, and YouTube's all part of that. It's kind of taken on the Autism Reality Experience is the name of the website, but you can quite easily Google Austin Riley autism and find all sorts of videos. And once you find the channel, so right now on the channel, the most recent thing is like 4 parts of the Canadian tour, which are pretty epic. Like I make these myself, and
in your spare time.
I put I don't make it all lovey-dovey. I put the fun times in, but I also put the struggles in, because that's most important. Because if everybody just thinks, oh, everything's so great, look how good Austin's doing, it doesn't mean so much unless you see the struggles too. And, especially when we did our first tour, like those first 4 weeks were incredibly hard for Austin. And, if I look at the 4 weeks we just were on the road in April, we maybe had 2 bad days out of those 4 weeks, where before it would have been every other day or every day.
They were really for issues that didn't matter.
Right.
Well, in your mind, they didn't.
Right. So there's the UK tour videos there, some news stories there, and I think the first episode of New Experiences with Austin, the indoor skydiving one there, is up already. The other ones we're trying to, because we're getting such a busy part of our racing schedule, we're trying to bank them, get them all ready, and then we'll put them out in an orderly succession when we get maybe 4 or 5 all done, so we don't have to worry about we haven't filmed anything for 3 weeks, and we want to continue the momentum, so people are actually wanting to see what the next episode is, or we can kind of trail one into the other. So we can. It'll be good. I hope it makes the biggest difference as I think it will.
Yeah. So this is what's filling your void, is it, Austin, until you go racing again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
What's been your favorite thing that you've done so far?
Probably the ambulance thing was the best one ever.
Yeah.
That was fun. I want that for a job.
As a father, like having somebody that races and having them being terrified of paramedics is not a good thing.
Have you ever had to use a paramedic at a racetrack?
Nope.
Well, a few years ago, a little bit of a funny story. It's
God.
funny now. Wasn't funny then.
It was funny for you.
Yeah. Austin was at a national event at his home track. He didn't qualify very well. We had some engine problems, so he's kind of starting like 3/4 of the way back. And they're coming around the formation lap, the pre-final, and his row, the guy in front doesn't get going very good and kind of stacks everybody up. And the conditions were really slippery. It had stopped raining, so some of the guys were on slicks, some were on reins. One guy, hit the brakes and looped the kart and kind of went across the track, but kept the steering wheel turned and came back across the track backwards. But just as Austin was going by, and massive impact. Austin's kart went, several feet in the air. It was a brand new kart the weekend before, and it was pretty much destroyed.
I rolled that.
Austin rolled out of the kart and lay on the ground, and immediate red flag, and it was like such a big impact that everybody on the fence that's watching the race is like, oh, that kind of thing, right? And my heart's in my throat. My wife's like losing her mind. The ambulance lights come on. The paramedics, because it's like right across from where the ambulance station was, they hop out of the truck and start running towards Austin. And Austin's kind of a bit dazed, and he sees the paramedics running towards him, and he gets up and starts running away. So he hops over the fence and then runs in our trailer and locks the door. He doesn't want anything to do with it. So they're banging on the door trying to get in.
You're chasing them?
Yeah. So we're chasing the paramedics like, no, hold on. So basically Austin wouldn't let anybody in the trailer because he didn't trust anybody.
Oh,
He
no.
let Shane in after about 10 minutes of coaxing. And then paramedics had to tell Shane through the door what to check to see if he was okay. Oh, it was,
that was funny.
So, Austin, after your experience last week, do you feel like you're over that fear?
Yeah, I want to do one for a job. Like, I want to do that.
Fantastic.
I want to do that for a job.
Ah.
You want to just sit in the back, or you want to drive?
I want to drive because people will get where they're going a lot quicker.
Well, your driving ability will come in handy there, won't it?
But it may also kill a few people, which I don't want that to happen.
Oh, so funny. Well, guys, thank you very much for your time today. I'll make sure I put all the links to how everyone can get involved with Racing with Autism in the show notes. And how they can sign up for the piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
Is that what it's called? Yes.
Puzzle pieces.
Puzzle pieces. That's it. I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
Not the piece of the puzzle.
And Austin, thank you very much. I hope to see you in Aussie soon. Aussie, back in Australia. If you do come down, make sure you let us know so we can promote it. You have to come to Melbourne though.
You got no problem. That's where I'd fly into anyway.
Yeah. Fantastic. So thank you very much, Jason. Thanks, guys. Well, thanks everyone for listening to this week's show. I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Now, remember, all the show notes with the links and the specials mentioned in today's show are available over at motivatetraining.com.au. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you could head to iTunes or Stitcher, type in Motorsport Coaching, subscribe, and leave us a review. Each week, I'll read them out, and you'll go into a monthly draw to win a fantastic prize. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at motivatetraining.com.au or head over to our Facebook page at Motivate2T. Until next time, take care.
Get ready for the race.
Do you feel one step closer to being the next superstar behind the wheel? Motivatetraining.com.au for more. MOTIV, 8, training.com.au.
The green flag.
Every episode gets you one step closer to the checkered flag. The Motorsport Coaching Podcast, getting you to the checkered flag faster.